Hello, everyone.
Oh,
Welcome.
we are
Tonight,
here.
really interesting case. It's all over the place. It's a roadmap. It's many people. It's good, bad, and in between. But we have a really special guest, and I think, Tom, you should tell us all about him.
We do have a special guest who is the one who actually brought this idea to handle this case and discuss it this evening. So, who we have here is my partner in crime. We have Nate from the Sirens as well.
Hey,
Hey, there he
what's
is.
going on?
Yay! We're all
Hey,
here
Yes,
having a party.
I've got 5 pages of notes. I am ready for this. Let's do it.
you want to say something?
All
That's what I'm talking about.
right,
Well,
so
and then I have this one.
this is how prepared I come. I just have a phone.
That works too.
Hey, it works. I'm gonna try to do a lot of it from memory, but we'll see how this goes. But I don't know. Since we only have an hour and there's so much to this case, let's jump into it.
I don't know if an hour's going to be enough for this one.
It's crazy. I was even talking to my dad about it before before the show, and he remembers this case because it was from like 2006, 2005.
2003. 2003.
I know I was like not even in high school yet.
Mm.
But so anyway, the case.
Oh, sure. Just make me feel old. Thanks.
I forgot. Well, Nate knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what she's
we
talking
were like
about.
what, 7th, maybe 8th grade.
No, I was 2003. I would have been sophomore in high school. So yeah.
Oh,
I'm not going to tell you where I was in 2003.
You're just an old man. That's okay.
You
Oh
know.
my gosh. Anyway, so let's get into this case. So some people know it as the Brian Wells case. Some people know it as the pizza delivery case. But so Brian Wells was a pizza delivery man for Mamma Mia. And he was at work one day, got a phone call, had some pizzas ordered to a television cell phone tower kind of in the area. He drives his happy little car over there to deliver pizzas. And the next thing that happens is he is forced into robbing a bank. And to do so, they strap a bomb to him. They give him a plethora of letters to follow and send him into a PNC bank in Erie, PA to rob it for exactly $250,000. And I want you to remember that dollar amount because that dollar amount comes up over and over and over throughout the case. So anyway, he goes into the bank. People are confused because he's kind of nonchalant. He's taking lollipops. He's like twirling he has a cane. That's a gun. And he's like twirling
it's a shotgun,
the cane around. Yeah, and he's acting very nonchalant, not very scared. Goes out of the bank. The police are there. The police get him. They have him in the middle of the road once they realize he's got a bomb on his chest. And they're trying to figure out what's going on. He's telling them over and over, just go get the keys, get this bomb off, go get the keys, it's going to detonate. And they're standing back, they're calling bomb squad, they're doing all this stuff, and all of a sudden they hear ticking. And it's tick, 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 tick. And he explodes in the middle of the road. And I was going to have the video tonight, but I thought it was a little too aggressive for a couple of the platforms we're on, so I decided to steer with Mac.
I agree with that. It is kind of tragic.
It was rough. It was rough.
It kind of, the first time I saw the video, it kind of, made me kind of like, oh Lord, because they did not turn away. I mean, they showed the entire detonation of the bomb.
That was right around like 2003 too. Like a lot of it was people with cell phones because it was kind of a new thing around then 2003. If you think about it, we used to just have flip phones that didn't really do anything fancy. But people were starting to get cell phones that could actually take videos and stuff like that. So that's where a lot of that came from, which is crazy.
And I wonder if any of it was body cams. I don't think a lot of the cops had body cams, but I think some of the more like FBI and more the federal agents did.
It would have been early, yeah.
But they did. They showed the explosion. They showed the body afterward. They did cover it with a sheet, like most instances. But there's a lot out there that you can see. It's very graphic, so I want to warn anybody that kind of goes trekking down that trail. But with that said, that started a whole new thing. So it went from a bank robbery to a possible murder. And we say that because in the car, they found letters, and it was a lot of letters, and it was kind of almost like a scavenger hunt. And it led him around town. And when they started, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this because you guys know, but this case is like a little bit of a roadmap. A lot of the people that would talk about Brian after his death, they would talk about how he was a very kind person, very nice, loving. If he got excited, he would dance. But one of the things he loved to do is there was a scavenger hunt in the newspaper. And the scavenger hunt would leave clues, and then you could follow it around town or whatever. And he loved to do that. So the fact that the killer or the mastermind, whoever is behind this, made it a scavenger hunt, I feel that they must have known Brian and known that he liked those kind of games.
I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, like something that he liked to do and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then even like the police, and jump in at any time, guys, because I really memorized a lot on this case.
Yeah.
Even that same day, the police went through the letters. They tried to figure out what happened, who could have gotten it. There's no fingerprints. There's no evidence outside of what was found in the car. They go to Brian's house. They find nothing. No evidence, no bomb building equipment, literally nothing. They do find a few phone numbers and a few things leading to prostitutes, which we'll come back to. But on the same day of the week, at the same time, same weather, everything, they tried to rerun that route that the letters had planned out. And, in the letters, it said that if you did it in 55 minutes, that you could get the keys and you could, not detonate, you could deactivate or disassemble the bomb. And the cops showed that even if he was right on time, that would have never happened.
No, he was on a death mission, basically. There was no way he was ever going to do everything in the amount of time that he had.
Yeah.
There's just too many things. And like you said, too, like he left this bank and the instructions he got were to go to the McDonald's up the street, dig through a flower bed, and there would be a rock with more notes for him. So that was his next step. He got to that point, and that's when the police got him. Like, even if he would have continued like on track, there's no way with kitchen timers and these bombs that he was gonna make it anywhere close to the time. So
exactly.
It's definitely just a mission that wasn't going to be accomplished either way. So
no, even if he was trying his hardest, and even if he knew all the right places and all the right things, he was not coming out of this alive in any way, shape, or form. And the thing that's sad about it is, and I get it, the family, they did do a lot of research. They did a lot of investigating into Brian, and they never found anything. They found absolutely no evidence whatsoever, aside from the phone call to the pizza place. His family did feel like they never really got closure because it was stated that, so when the bomb went off, the back of it was cut into a checkerboard to kind of shoot shrapnel out. Whoever made it didn't cut it deep enough, so it didn't technically do that. And the bomb was kind of strapped to his chest and was like a collar around his neck. And then it had locks, and it was like 4 key locks. And I forget what they're called, but they're like the little numbers. You have to kind of like.
Yeah.
I forget what they're called.
I don't know. I can't think of the name of it.
I just call it a numbered lock. I mean.
Yeah, something like that.
It looked like the collar was like almost how you would like think of how a handcuff would look, like how they go together like that, and it looked exactly like one of the links of a handcuff to me. But
yeah, well, and it was so like well made that they even said that when they were, well, first of all, they had to surgically decapitate Brian to get it off of his body because they weren't sure if it would if it only half went off or if there were more more into it. But they said that whoever built it, they were literally just pipe bombs, and they had rigged it so much with all these fake different things that even the bomb squad wouldn't have been able to disassemble it. Yep. So poor Brian was literally on a death mission, like you said. And it's terrible. And I feel bad for his family. And I know they put a lot of it on the police, saying that they could have helped him. They could have helped him. But I do think the police handled it the best way they could, in that time frame at least.
Yeah, so from what I read, the police, when they got to him, they sat him there and then they made a perimeter so everybody was away from him before, because the bomb squad was like 3 minutes away before it actually went off. So, like, either way, there wouldn't have been any time for them to do anything, I don't think. They would have been putting themselves in jeopardy either way. But,
Yeah, and in that moment, you know, as a police officer, like, you have to remember, either you go home or this person goes home. I mean, you still have a family to go home to, and I know that sounds terrible, but when this man is sitting there with a bomb strapped to his chest after just robbing a bank, and he says, "Oh, I didn't do it. Someone made me do this." I mean, it's a judgment that's really. I don't know if I would have went in there and acted any differently than the police did.
yeah.
You know, it's very sketchy. And watching and reading and researching this, like, this whole case is like a real life Saw movie.
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
You guys didn't get that with the thing and the game, and like, I literally was expecting like the little guy on the tricycle to come
the tricycle. You want to play a game?
Yeah.
Well, now that you mention it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like, and the fact that it was like something that Brian liked to do, and that was incorporated, and it was just really weird. And then the case keeps getting weird, because so Brian dies from this bomb, and just a few weeks later, another delivery driver from the same pizza shop, who happened to be one of Brian's friends, is found unresponsive.
But it's all weird. The whole story will continue to get weirder and weirder as we go too. Like, there's nothing normal about any of this.
Well, and for a while they questioned if that guy, Robert Panetti was his name. They questioned if Robert Panetti had anything to do with it, because he did work at the same pizza shop. He knew Brian. He was a coworker of him. But once the autopsy came back, it was found that Robert had died of an overdose. They're saying either an accidental overdose or a possible suicide. They're not sure, because Robert was kind of upset about his friend Brian and all of that. And then that
was like the only lead the police had at that point too. Like, they had no clue anything, like anybody that would have did anything other than that. Because they followed. So I don't know if you read why they were talking to Brian with the bomb on. They asked him who did this to him, and he said a group of black men did it to him. So that was the only thing the police had to go off of. So they searched all things they could do for any of that and had zero out of anything. So
yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is, they originally went to go question Robert Panetti at the pizza shop, and he was kind of distraught, and he said, "Can we do this Monday?" He goes, "I will answer questions, I will cooperate, but can we do this on Monday?" And he was found over the weekend dead. So people questioned, was it a cover-up? Did he know something? Did he do something? And, or did he feel bad? Like, there was so much speculation around that, but because he had passed, no one really knew. And then it kind of went cold, really. Like you said, the only thing the police had is that little bit of information Brian gave them about a group of black men. They didn't get anything out of Robert. And one cop mentioned at the very last stop on the scavenger hunt that they had noticed like a blue minivan kind of off in the distance, but they couldn't tell really what it was doing, because it had stopped for a minute, was watching them, and kind of left. But really, that was it. That's all they had, and nothing else had been brought up for weeks. And I don't know if one of you guys want to talk about the next crime that happened in this town, because it is right around your guys' area, and it's like this bombing happened, and then like a couple weeks later, now you have another big crime that comes forward.
So the police get a phone call from this guy, William Rothstein, Bill Rothstein, and he tells them that, hey, I've got a body I'm hiding in my freezer. basically, confesses to having this. So, obviously that's something that's going to blip the police right away, and they're going to go figure out what that's all about. Not every day somebody has a body in their freezer.
Or calls the police and tells them they have the body.
Tells
in the
them they have a
freezer.
body in the
Right.
freezer. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
But he didn't do it.
Yeah.
No.
Marjorie Deal Armstrong, who happened to be engaged to him twice at different points in time. So like they were pretty close. So maybe that's one of those things you do. You ask your ex-fiance to hide a body for you in a freezer. I don't really know. I don't think that's something I would ask anybody, but
Unless it was their own, I don't think I would ask.
yeah, no, yeah.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the weird thing is, like, people that talk about Bill talk about that he was extremely intelligent, very handy, was rich at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because Marjorie, his girlfriend, I guess at that point, was also
yeah, I don't think they were together at that point. No, because the body in the freezer happened to be her boyfriend.
That's right.
Who she ended up, shooting over some kind of dispute. And, who are you going to call, your ex-fiance to come put this body in the freezer for you, I guess? I don't know.
Your boyfriend.
Yeah.
She was also explained as very intelligent, but she had a lot of mental illness. She had like bipolar. Yes. She had multiple personality disorder. She had a bunch of different things. And you're right. The body in the freezer was her boyfriend, and his name was James Roden. And he was shot 6 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing I found interesting is that is not her only significant other that had passed.
Hadn't she shot in the 80s? Had shot another one of her boyfriends, and she was acquitted for self-defense 5 times.
No,
5 times. Yeah.
5 of her significant others had passed violent.
One had hung himself.
Yep.
One had fallen and hit his head on a table or something like that. So like, there's all these weird things going on with this lady already. Like, how are you gonna see the red flag right away on her, and all this stuff going on?
Right. And the whole time when they're kind of going through this with the police, Bill tells on Marge tells on Bill. They're both denying it. But the only reason that I think Marge took the hit for it and ended up getting arrested was because Bill was so cooperative with the police. And he actually offered to give them a tour of the house and give them like a little view of like the crime scene. And go ahead. No, go ahead.
It's all weird though, like the whole situation, like
I have to kind of question how those people died, and you didn't have anybody questioning that at all at any point in time?
No. There's clearly something going on. There's a pattern already at that point.
She claimed self-defense on the one boyfriend who she shot 6 times on the couch. He was laying on the couch, and she claimed self-defense. Like, he's on the couch sleeping. You shoot him 6 times, and somehow the police are like, "Oh yeah, self-defense."
Now, the only reason he called the cops to say this in the first place is because she was pressuring him to take this body and run it through an ice grinder to get rid of it. And that's apparently where he drew the line. He's like, "No, I think I'm gonna back out on that one, guys.
I'll hide your body in the freezer, but I won't chop it up in an ice grinder."
No, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, and he actually told the police, like, when he was doing his walkthrough, he told the police, "Oh, he was laying here. I put the tarp here. I rolled him up in the tarp." Like, he gave details, and I get he was out on bond and he was getting, he was cooperating, so they needed him. But like, I feel like what he said to them was plenty to put him behind bars.
Oh yeah, he's got the body in his freezer, so he had to have something to do with it. There's no getting out of it.
If anything, it's an accessory to a crime at that point.
Yeah. And then isn't there something, I forget that's the technical term, but it's like disrespecting a corpse or something like that, mishandling.
Desecration
something
of the
like
corpse. Yeah.
Desecration, something like that. Yeah.
yeah. And the poor guy had been in the freezer so long that they said he was literally frozen to the freezer.
Oh, I didn't
And
hear that part. That's rough.
they had to thaw out the freezer to be able to like lift him out.
Hmm.
Now, did they say how
So-
long he was in the actual freezer for?
About a
So-
month, right?
Yeah, I think they said somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks, because the weird thing is they did a timeline, just because, you know, with the town, there wasn't really that type of crime and those kinds of murders. And they timed it that he was killed. Well, he had been put in the freezer roughly 3 weeks before the bank heist happened. And, you know, we were talking about Marge and her, we'll say, dislike for significant others and how 5 of them had passed. But that wasn't the only thing. She tried to have her father killed too. So it was kind of like anybody who crossed her or anybody who even slightly got on her nerves, she would try to take him out.
So that's kind of what leads up. So now we're going backwards here.
Well, what about the trial? You should mention the comment from the trial, and then that kind of starts swinging it back in the other direction.
Which one?
So when Marge went to trial for the death of James Roden, they convicted her. They start walking her back out of the courtroom and going back into where she would be kind of, if not checked, processed, where she would be processed. And she yells, "I didn't do this. It is Bill's fault. He should be charged with Brian Wells' murder on top of other crimes." And that is where people kind of raise the eyebrows. Well, how is this tied to Brian Wells? And why should he be charged?
So when the cops were searching this guy's house, Rothstein's house, he had said on the phone to the police, you know, he was feeling, you know, suicidal and all this stuff because of this. They found a suicide note in his desk, Rothstein's house, in his desk, and it starts off by saying, "This has nothing to do with the Wells case." So, like, right then and there, like, why would that be the first thing you write on a suicide letter? Like, that's gonna be like straight away. I'm gonna be like, well, you know, why even bring that up? Like, what's that got to do with anything? Like,
he wasn't a suspect, was he?
No, not at that point. That
but
made him a suspect.
how could you not be now at that point?
Yeah. They had no way to tie him to any of that until they saw this note, and he said this has nothing to do with the Wells case. So, all right, well, what does it have to do with? Yeah. Why put that? That's a strange thing to start a letter with, you know? Like,
well, and
that doesn't make any sense.
Intriguing.
And it's interesting too, because when I believe it was in that suicide note that he had mentioned that he was thinking about suicide because he was having a dispute with his family. So his parents had passed. He was living in the house that his parents owned and was paid off. And his brother and his sister wanted to sell the house and split the money. But he was in charge of the estate. And he was living there for free. His parents paid it off.
Yeah.
So he had told his siblings that he listed the house for sale, and the sale price was $250,000. And even his realtor's like, that's too expensive. The house isn't going to sell. But I think he did that because if the house doesn't sell, then he doesn't have to leave. And his siblings think he's trying to sell it. So it's this whole thing of, I'm keeping my siblings happy. I still get the house that I get to live in for free. And this whole thing. But the house was listed for $250,000. And I'm sorry, but that house, I don't believe, was for $250,000 in that time.
Yeah.
And he also starts ratting on Marge for more things.
The plot thickens.
Yeah, it kept going and going and going here. Like, he ended up testifying against Marge for a lot of stuff, just for immunity and stuff like that, because he just, you know, too many things he saw. But yeah, once they were already kind of implicated with this whole Wells thing because of certain things, like the letter, like that. Then the eyes are already on you. Like then, he's just like, well, let me tell you all this stuff that happened. This and this and this, and like,
Yeah, Marge for a lot, but she took
mhm,
some shots at him too
yeah,
because she blamed him for harboring a fugitive
hmm
for a while because he did have a roommate, Floyd Stockton, who
hmm
lived with him for 2 years, and this man was a convicted rapist. He had
hmm
raped a disabled teenage girl,
hmm
and he was
and like
kind of,
he was actually a fugitive while he was there. Like they were looking for him.
which is crazy that this one little house had so many
Hmm
different things going on. And
hmm
and when I almost doing the tour, did you notice
Oh.
kind of, hey Brandon, I just saw you
hmm
jump. Sorry, I'm watching the chat too.
hmm
Squirrel.
Yeah, you're also we're breaking up for a minute there.
Oh
Yeah.
no. Okay. Well then I'll get out of that if one of you guys want to watch the chat. So one of the things that they said is when they were doing the tour around Bill's house and where the crime had taken place, where James was killed, they video it and they video all of it. And at that moment, I don't think anybody kind of clicked in and realized what was going on. But once they replayed it and once everything started coming together, which we will eventually get to, it's like I said, it's a spider web of cases. There was something that was in the video that was very interesting. That was
Which part are you?
it was a diagram blueprint for a device.
Hmm
And
And
that is
here's
really what kind
Mhm.
of rocketed
Mhm.
the investigation into Bill and Marge.
Now you did mention that Bill was kind of smart. He was a high school shop teacher,
Yep.
so he's good at making stuff. He was an engineer at one point, so he's already got all this knowledge of how to do stuff. Plus, I guess he was a hoarder and he had a whole bunch of machinery and equipment and stuff like that. So things you
Yeah.
could easily put into a pipe bomb or anything like that. He's smart, obviously, because he's an engineer. Like so now all the pieces are starting to add up. Like we got somebody smart enough to make a bomb
Mhm.
and with all the stuff at his house and all that stuff.
I
Well,
did
let me
also
ask
hear
you,
that they were all hoarders as well. All of them.
Oh yeah,
all of them.
yeah.
Mhm. And they
Imagine that
do say
house.
that hoarding is a sign of a mental illness.
hmm
Just to throw that in there. But with all those skills that you mentioned,
hmm
those all fall under. Did you see what the FBI profiled?
I think I did, but I can't remember now.
So the FBI in any case they're gonna profile what they feel the person would be like, the person's profile.
hmm
Literally, Bill fits the profile to a
100%, yeah.
to a literal T, which was crazy
Uh-huh.
because I don't know how much that actually happens.
No.
Yeah. So then moving on with that, so Bill and Marge are at odds. They're blaming each other for the murder of James Jordan. I'm gonna apologize. The dog is snoring if you hear random grumbles. It's nothing growling, I promise. So they're at odds. They're blaming each other for James's murder. This whole thing about Brian Wells comes out. Marjorie claims she had nothing to do with it. Bill is now claiming that Marjorie had everything to do with it. So now these two individuals are being looked at on two cases. And with them going back and forth, Marge brings up Floyd Stockton because he was a fugitive and he had been convicted of that rape and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And she's trying to get the charges kind of built up on Bill and trying to get him in trouble, get him arrested because she doesn't understand why she's in jail and he's not. And then somehow a random name of a fishing buddy comes up, and this happens to be Ken Barnes,
Mhm.
which adds another layer to it. And Ken Barnes is questioned and asked if he knows anything about what's going on with either James or Brian. He says no, but in his interview, he starts to joke around that him and Marge are friends, They've been friends since they were young. And she kind of solicited him to kill her father. And she told him, I will pay you $250,000 if you kill my father. And him jokingly said, would you give me half of it up front? And she said, no. So then she starts to talk about, or in his claims, starts to talk about, well, what if I rob a bank and give you the money? Will you kill my father? And this now gives the police something else to go on, because now Brian Wells' name is into it, a bank robbery's into it, $250,000 has now come up 3 different times on 3 different situations. So it's kind of slowly coming together, but that's all Ken knows, or so he says.
Yeah, that's all he said he knew. So there is. No, this one's a mess, isn't it? Like, it really is.
I mean, just trying to keep it all straight is just overwhelming.
Yeah.
It is. And so, again, they questioned Ken. He didn't really have much to give, so they kind of were like, all right, well, thanks for that information. He did say, like, oh, it was a joke, just kidding, blah, blah, blah. But, so they let him go. They don't really think much of it. But then they have people from jail, because now at this point, Marjorie's been in jail for quite some time.
Yes.
And now, yes, for years. And now there's people coming forward that used to be cellmates of hers. And they're talking about things that Bill had done. They're talking about now her friend Ken. They're talking about how she tried to have her father killed. And the reason why she wanted her father killed is because she was angry at PNC Bank, which is the
she thought that her father was spending all of her inheritance money, and that's the reason why she wanted to have him killed. So that way he was giving money to charities, he was giving money to churches, anything he wanted to give money to, he was giving all this money away. And she thought, well, if he's going to do that, I'm not going to have anything by the time he, eventually passed away. So this is what the whole thing was all about. Kill her father so she gets some money from him and doesn't, have all this money gone by the time he's, finally gone. So
yeah. Well, and the reason and the way that PNC Bank got tied into it and why she was angry at them is because her father went in, and I guess they had a safety deposit box, and they had some valuables in there, and the father went and emptied it. I mean, she was already in jail. Well, no, actually that was before she went to jail, but he emptied the box. She wasn't notified. She said that some of the things in the box were hers, and she was upset. So she was already angry at PNC Bank, which happens to be the same bank that Brian Wells walked into. Yep. And she had made threats toward that bank previously to other people, including one of her best friends. And now she's kind of reinstating that and telling that to people that she's a cellmate with.
Well, let's just say that, I mean, she wasn't fully smart on this whole thing. So the whole reason she started talking about and saying she had information about the Wells case was because while she was in prison, she wanted to be transferred to a minimum security prison. No, I'm sorry, you're in prison for murder. And in what world did you think that giving information on another murder was going to get you into a minimum security prison?
Yeah. Well, and she was also claiming she wanted that to happen because she thought that she would be able to claim insanity, and she thought the food was better.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a good reason.
I'm a food myself, so I get it. But let's be honest. I mean, my husband works in corrections for 10 years, and they will rat you out so quickly if they feel that it will lessen their sentence. Yeah. If it will help them make a deal. There are so many times that the inmates, they make up lies. They say, oh,
Mhm.
so and so told me something, but they didn't really tell him anything. They just want a lesser sentence. So I
Mhm.
get why the cops didn't really take it serious. And they
Mhm.
kind of labeled them and had them like in a desk drawer as like the snitch letters, which I kind
Yeah.
of find funny. But like, and I get it, but some of these claims had things that only like the perpetrator would know.
Somebody that was involved
Yeah,
would know. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that it kind of implicated them more by the time they did their stuff. I had written down you were talking about inmates and stuff like that.
Yep.
One of the inmates serving with Marjorie actually went to the authorities. Did you see this? And said that Marjorie actually admitted to killing her boyfriend, which the evidence was already there anyway. But
Yeah.
Marjorie told her that she killed the boyfriend because he was going to expose the bomb plot. So that's
Yep.
why he ended up getting pumped full of lead on the couch and thrown into a freezer
Yeah.
because he was going to snitch everybody out.
Right. Well, and
Which
then nope, go ahead.
no, I mean that's and if certain people are involved with it, of course Rothstein, if he's involved in it, he's gonna hide this body because
Hey, he
he
was
didn't want to
given
get
two
put in jail
thousand
either.
dollars for helping to hide
Yeah,
that body.
yeah,
Yeah,
money's
two
money.
thousand dollars. I mean,
that is true. But and one of the things that one of the cellmates said that kind of shook me for a minute, where then so the whole time I'm researching this case, I'm like, poor Brian, poor
Mhm.
James, these poor guys are just wrong place, wrong time, kind
Mhm.
of thing. But then
Maybe.
Marjorie says something where I was like a little puppy and my ears went up like, what? And Marjorie makes a comment to one of her cellmates that was very snippy and kind of like, what? You don't think Brian was involved? How do you think we measured his neck?
Mhm.
Now,
hmm.
that
We'll
could go
debate
two
this at
different
the end.
ways.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
could go two different ways because you did say it looked like a handcuff, and handcuffs are
Mhm.
universal. They can fit an array of people.
Yep.
So did they really measure his neck, or was it more
No. Yeah.
it
Well,
would fit anybody?
I don't know. Did you guys see a picture of it?
Yes,
Did you see the picture? Because if you look at the picture, it does not look like it stretches at all.
but it can go tighter.
Yeah.
But you would still
I mean,
need
unless
to
you're like
have an
picking some
idea.
cock diesel MFer with a
Mhm.
one that doesn't have a neck, really.
Mhm.
I
I
mean, I
mean,
could see like the average neck. I mean, think of like necklaces and
Mhm.
shirt collars and things like that.
so
There,
let's
there
play.
is a universal. And think of
Yeah.
handcuffs. Handcuffs when they're shut. I mean, this is gonna come off way worse than what I mean it
Oh
to.
boy.
Oh
But
boy.
look,
Oh my god.
they're they're from a
This is
location.
not
I
that kind of
promise.
show.
They're from a location. I promise.
Okay.
But if you think like this side doesn't look very big, so I mean, it is
Yeah.
possible.
So
You
let
know what I
me play devil's advocate for a minute here.
mean?
So let's say that Brian, or we believe Brian, had no idea what was happening, right? He wasn't part of the plot. He wasn't anything. It makes me wonder, if he was not part of this, how many times did he deliver pizza to their residence? Because
Yes.
you can kind of size up someone depending on how many times that they've come to your place dropping off pizza, because we all know
Mhm.
he delivered pizza. You can kind of get an idea of how big or small you need to make that bomb.
Yes. And Tom, I am so glad you brought that up because I know later in this conversation that Nate and I don't agree on something and we're going to
Mhm.
argue about it. But I am
Yes.
glad that you said that because one of the witnesses, when we get there, one of the anonymous witnesses said that they saw Brian driving away from Bill and Marjorie's house. But if he was delivering a pizza, he's going to be driving away from the house. So that is not a credible piece of evidence to say that he was involved or he wasn't involved or whatever Marjorie is kind of claiming.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to know how long he was there for.
Well, and the person said they were driving down the road and saw his car leave their house.
Yeah. So you don't really know how long
You
he
don't
was. Was he just delivering a pizza and it was a quick drop off and go?
Right.
Or-
Well, and let's take this farther because, like I said, there's so many people involved in it. You know, they did with, like, we'll say, you know, Marjorie's claiming that Bill had a part in it, that now Brian was a part of it. He knew what he was getting himself into. But I'm gonna try to speed it up because we're at 40 minutes. But eventually,
I know there's so much to it. There's so much to it. Yeah.
So let's be honest. Eventually, the fishing friend, the fishing partner, whatever, Ken Barnes does come forward, and he admits to everything. He breaks it down for the cops. He says that Marjorie was involved, Brian was involved. He said that Bill was involved, that James was involved, and that that Robert was involved, and all these different people. And he even gives kind of what they did. So they try to say that Marge was the mastermind of all of it. She was the one who planned it and put it all together. Bill was the muscle behind it all. He was the one who made sure that things got done. Ken was supposed to be the lookout. Floyd, who he apparently was a part of it, he was the person who apparently helped Bill build the bomb. And then Brian was supposed to do the robbery. James, the boyfriend from the cooler or freezer, was the getaway driver. So when Ken comes forward and tells people all this, they're like, well, how is there a connection between all these people? And ironically, it's a prostitute. Jessica is, she was working for Brian, who would pay her for her services. She would then go to Ken, pay him for coke, and then she would do the coke. And it was kind of a vicious cycle.
He would actually go to Ken's house to meet Jessica, and that's where they would do the business transaction, if you will.
Yeah, 100%.
Good way to put it.
Yeah.
I like that, the transaction. But with that, so Ken blames everybody. Ken says everybody has a part in it. The only person that he doesn't really give a part to is Robert Panetti, but he does say that Robert has a part in it. And he claims that they had a before heist meeting that all these people were at. And he's claiming that for a long time.
Including Brian.
They are claiming that. Now, again, during all of this, you know, Bill had already died. Bill passed away from cancer. So he was no longer able to be questioned. James was thawing somewhere, so he was no longer to be questioned. Robert had drug overdose, so you can't question him. Brian's blown to pieces, you can't question him. Floyd's in jail because he raped a poor child. So you really only have Ken and Jessica and Marge left. So Marge is continuously saying she's innocent. She has nothing to do with it, but she has a lot of anger toward these people. And long story short, eventually Jessica comes out and she admits that she overheard a conversation about a bank robbery. And Ken had told her, I need you to find someone stupid enough and dumb enough that this can happen. And unfortunately, she picked Brian. Some of the things that people say about Brian and the way that he was acting during the robbery and some of the little mannerisms that he had, I do question if he had the mental capacity of an adult. A lot of people would call him a very derogatory term that begins with an R, kind of claiming that he had Down syndrome. People said that he did have a slight, they would say mental illness, but it was more like a learning disability. And Brian, he really liked Jessica. I mean, they found stuff of her all over the place. She was his number one pick for working ladies. Jessica did say that they had a special relationship outside of transactions. They would hang out. They would. He knew her family knew him. So they were pretty close. And when Jessica comes out and says this, Ken admits it. And Ken Barnes does say that Brian was never a part of it, that he was set up, that when he was called to order the pizza, or when they called to order the pizzas, Bill's actually the one who ordered the pizzas. Brian got in the car, delivered them to the tower, and there was evidence of a struggle. And when Ken talks about what happened that day, he did say that Brian delivered the pizzas. He was waiting to get paid. And then Bill fired a gun, told Ken to put this bracket necklace bomb on him. Marge was putting a shirt on to hide it. Like, so, and Nate, I know we're going to argue, and I want to leave time for that because, you know, I honestly don't think Brian had a part of it. And the only reason I think they do, and Tom, I think this is where you're going to be able to shed some light, is it is stated that if the person killed was part of the crime, the co-conspirators cannot be sentenced to death. And I think that every single one of those people living now, or the ones that are left, were trying to save their own tushies to not get the death sentence. And I think that's and Brian's not here to back himself up. Robert's not here to back it up. James isn't here to back it up. Floyd's still in jail. You know, Bill can't say anything. So it's literally Jessica and Ken versus Marge. And I do think that they were blaming Brian so that they would never have to have the death sentence. And I think that's how his name got brought into it. Prove me wrong, Nate. Prove me wrong.
Well, I'm going to tell you what the district attorney had to say, and she said he was absolutely a part of it, and he was actually, you know, indicted, implicated in the whole case. Like he
was.
If right or wrong, because obviously he can't defend himself or anything, he will go down as being a part of it. Like that's what they all decided. That's what, with all the evidence pointing to different things, he was 100% a part of it. So my main thing for saying he was a part of it, when the cops are questioning him, why would he tell them that it was black men that put this collar on him if it wasn't? Like that right there, that's a red flag to me. He lied to the police, or why would he?
I will tell you, in the moment of fear or in the moment of panic, it is 90% that people get things wrong. And
this man panicked? He was not panicked. He was grabbing a lollipop out of the bank.
But I want to know, in that moment of fear, how wrong are these actual answers? Because to get into complete race wrong.
But then again, so you have a bomb strapped to your chest with a gun being held to your head. That right there is going to put fear. Okay, let's go back to abusive relationships. How many times is someone beaten half to death, and they're asked, "Did your spouse do this?" No, no.
Okay,
it's out of fear. That I don't know Erie, PA. I don't know if it's very big, but where he delivered the pizzas, where these people lived, and where that pizza shop wasn't too far. So
they were all within a couple minutes. Yeah.
Right, so he may have recognized these people. And when somebody's holding a gun to your head, there's lots of times that crimes happen where they say, if you tell anybody, I'll kill you. They already know where he works.
Let me rebuttal that, though. Let me rebuttal that, because you said something interesting. Because when it comes to abuse, and they say, did your spouse do that? And they say no. They're not going and saying, hey, this other person who's a other race did that.
But they're saying they fell down, that they were walking and they fell and hit their eye on a doorknob.
But that's my point. That's a huge difference between what he said. Because if he's sitting there with this bomb on, with guns pointed at him, he's not saying, "No, I don't know who did this." He's specifically lying about what it was.
I will tell you what I think. I think he was in on it. But I think when he showed up to start this, because he was actually off the clock. I don't know if you saw that. He was off the clock and he said, "No, I'll deliver that pizza." So he drove it and he delivered the pizza. I think he was under the understanding this was going to be a fake bomb put on him. And at some point, that's not what happened. They put a real bomb on him and they figured, if he gets caught, the bomb's going to go off. And that's one loose end we don't have to worry about.
And that
Ghosts.
would be, and that would be
That was him
exactly
coming
why
in
they
to tell
did
you.
it.
The
From what-
pendulums are now talking.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And from what my understanding is they told him it was fake bomb, put a real one on him because they wanted to one less witness.
Yeah,
to what
that's one
they-
less person. If
they
he
were
gets
planning.
blown to pieces, that's one less person that could implicate everybody else.
But then
It's one loose end tied up.
if he really thought that it was fake, why would he
Mhm.
be telling the police, hurry up, it's going to go off, it's going to go off, it's going to go off?
You want the police to think that, but
Correct.
his whole demeanor while he was at the bank, so calm, so cool, collected. He's letting people leave. He's not making a big scene at all. And he's just like, grabs a dum-dum on his way out. He's sucking a lollipop, walking over to McDonald's, looking through stuff. He's just like, whatever. Like,
But at the same time, if he truly did have if he was seen as having Down syndrome, there are some people,
Mhm.
there are some individuals that are very calm, collected, cool, nothing bothers them. So if he
Mhm.
did have some type of mental illness, that could have been an effect of it. Just
Mhm.
like people have
Absolutely.
short fuses, some people have, yeah,
absolutely.
And as far as being able to like point out who did what, I will tell you from personal experience, being in a bank robbery myself.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, I will say they came in, guns blazing, shot, almost hit. It was a whole thing. And I can remember everything that happened. But if you put those people in front of me, I couldn't tell you if it was them or not.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like they do say in stressful situations that your brain will manipulate things. And they did a study of it too, where they had, we'll say 5 people, and they had 3 individuals that were like the perpetrators. And they would put these people in stressful situations. And every single one of those people got the details of the perpetrator wrong. I mean, down to, well, what color hat was he wearing? Oh, he had a blue hat. Well, he didn't have a hat. So it's all in the ways that you ask the questions too. So there's a lot of factors. I don't believe. I don't know. Me personally, I would never put a real or fake bomb strapped to my chest because there's still that possibility. Let's be honest. If police do get involved, the bomb's faked, but you're probably going to get shot.
Yeah.
Very likely possibility.
Right. So it's those things where I don't think somebody would and he had no mask on. He had no gloves on. So all these things, like I feel like if he knew what he was walking into and knew that there would be a possibility that he would get away with it, I don't think he would have gone in like, here's my face, here's my fingerprints, here's this, that.
Didn't he hand the bank teller his license and everything too?
He did.
He gave him all that information. So,
but unless,
and if he was a part of it, why would they make it a scavenger hunt? Why would you just go in?
Well, that kind of goes where I was saying. If he's not wearing a mask or not doing this and that, maybe it could be because of diminished mental capacity.
But then that would also justify why he was so nonchalant eating a sucker.
Yes, but that also doesn't necessarily rule out that he didn't know what was going on.
No, but I do think that I think if he didn't, or if he did have a part in it, why would Jessica and Ken both say he didn't? Because he's already gone. He's already dead. So them saying that he had nothing to do with it is worse on them because Ken was in jail. Floyd was also Floyd actually is out, married, and having kids, which is really weird.
He's dead now, for the record.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Rod help. Bastard.
But for Ken Barnes to specifically say that Brian Wells had nothing to do with it, that is not beneficial to him whatsoever because he was already doing life in jail. And I don't know if he had a chance of parole or not, but by saying that he didn't have a part in it, all that does is where they can now possibly give him the death penalty. And the same with Marge.
Well, let's also not forget that an ATF agent also deemed Jessica as not to be a credible witness.
But all of them are not deemed credible witnesses.
Yeah.
But again,
So
what is credible? Because I
Yeah.
just had that situation last week where people say something's not credible. Well, of course, it's not credible until it happens. So also, Marjorie was known for being a pathological liar. Bill was known for being a pathological liar. Ken was a drug dealer. You know,
Yeah.
all these people had their own issues. So I don't think any of them are technically credible.
We're
Technically,
not
that
dealing
would
with the
make
best
them
of people, yeah.
not credible to begin with.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not dealing with, you know.
So I guess you really got to take what they say or what they claim with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and that's why when people say things like that, especially in cases where it involves so many people, I try to look at what do they get out of it? What are they saying, and does it benefit them in a way? And by saying that Brian Wells had nothing to do with it, it doesn't benefit Jessica or Ken. Jessica was released. The only reason she was in jail was on drug charges. So she wasn't arrested for anything to do with this. And for her to then come out and say, hey, I kind of handpicked him and handed him over, that could get her arrested for being an accessory. So for her to say that, to come out and come clean about that, or to say that Brian had nothing to do with it, it's more bad than good for her.
It's all a big old web of lies, and nobody's ever going to really know the truth because basically all of them have all passed away at this point now. So it's all open to debate and discussion as to was he involved, who was the mastermind, who did what.
Well, we also can't forget that there were two witnesses, and I don't think they were ever named, that said that they had seen Wells talking to everyone about the robbery.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
They had two witnesses that were not named that had come forward and said that they heard and overheard and saw Wells speaking to the group of them about the actual participating and that they were going through a rehearsal for it.
But it was deemed that there was no such thing as a rehearsal. That was a fact. But there was rumor that there was a rehearsal the night before it all happened, but the time that apparently did happen, Brian was in work. So even if there was
so what I found was the rehearsal was a month before.
They said it was the night before.
Well, I'm looking at something right here that says it was a month before.
Well, then you better go on Netflix and fact check them.
Well, this wasn't nothing to do with Netflix. This is not Netflix at all.
But again,
either way,
we all know how quickly rumors can spread. And, there are those people who, like in crimes, they say, oh, we had 500 leads and none of them turned out to be anything. So unfortunately, it's hard because this was so long ago, because there's some witnesses, but there's also 6 or 7 people involved. Most of those people are dead. I don't think the truth will ever come out, ever. And that breaks my heart for Brian's family. Not only did they have to lose a family member, then they couldn't even have an open casket for his funeral because they had to surgically decapitate him to get the device off of his body. Yep. And then you finally think things are coming down and you're getting a little bit closure. And a couple months later, all this comes rearing up that they have all these people involved, and now Brian's being blamed, and now he's not being blamed. And it's like that poor family. And it's the same. James didn't deserve to die. Robert didn't deserve to die. We're going to leave Bill out of that one.
Yeah.
But it just sucks for the families, and I don't think we'll ever find out the truth.
No.
And it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is, we've been talking about this for an hour, and I feel like we just scraped the surface of the case. We really didn't get into,
no.
Like
There's
I
a
have
lot.
so many pages of like nitty gritty details that we just can't even get
Yeah.
into.
No. I highly recommend, if anybody wants to see more, watch the Netflix documentary special. Netflix always has the best documentaries, but they did a really good one about this whole
Yeah,
this
the
whole
name
thing. So
the name is Evil Geniuses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and they did a great job on that one. They kind of put the spotlight on each person little by little, so you kind of got to see each one and make your own decisions.
Yeah.
There is a lot of stuff on YouTube if you want to. It really all you have to do is put Brian Wells case or pizza delivery case, and I mean you will get articles and articles and articles worth of stuff.
A lot of them.
Yeah, it was a very, very big case. And like I said, I was even talking to my dad, and my dad's like, oh, I remember that case. That was in Erie. I'm like, yeah, it was.
I mean, so when it happened in 2003, I was right out of high school. I graduated 2002. And I actually do remember the news because it actually reached our Channel 7 news. They were sent the video of the whole thing. And
it was
they
national
showed
news.
it. Well, yeah, but they got
Yeah.
the very first video here to show before it hit anywhere else national.
Well, and
So
the crazy thing is, if you watch the news article, like if you watch the news covering it, they showed the whole video on the news.
Yeah.
Like
They weren't on a
nowadays
delay.
they cut away. They did not cut away, and I was not ready for that because I was kind of watching, and it happened. I was like, oh, they didn't black that part out.
no, yeah. And it was like it just happened too. It wasn't like there was any precursor or you knew it was coming or anything. Nope, it just happened. And
the only reason I guess I was expecting it, but again, I thought they were going to black out is because you can hear the ticking.
Yeah.
Like a kitchen timer was like tick, 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 and then it was like tick, tick, tick. I'm like, oh, that's not good. That's not boom, not good.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
All right. But before we go, there's one more round. Nate, do you think he was involved or not?
I still do, unfortunately.
Okay, Ashley.
I'm gonna say no. I have to stick up for Brian. I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna say that he was just a victim of circumstances. Wrong time, wrong place.
Can I change my answer?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think he was involved initially, but I think he became a victim at some point. If that makes sense.
That does make sense. Because
once they put a real bomb on him and not a fake bomb, I think that's when he became.
You know, that's actually a good point. What if he was initially involved, but he didn't know a bomb was involved?
Yeah.
Because that is when they said, Ken did say that he delivered the pizzas, put them on the hood, was standing there. And when Ken walked out with the device is when Brian started to get nervous and antsy and tried to run, and Marge and Bill jumped on him, dragged him, and they put that on him. So maybe it was hey, you're going to rob this bank. And then day of, hey, we're going to strap this bomb to your chest and send you on a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Yep. I would agree with that.
What do you think? Yeah.
So I'd say that I am somewhere in the middle. Now, honestly, we all played some devil's advocate here tonight, and Ashley's now got a really weird light on.
No, like I had my second monitor and like a beach scene came on. There we go.
So I would say that I'm somewhere in the middle. Like Nate said, I believe initially he knew what they were planning and what they were doing. Based on my main thing is based on and they were witness affidavits from the FBI, where they came from, saying that the witnesses saw him with them planning and everything. But I think the planning was a fake bomb initially, is what they told him. Then I think once he realized it was a real bomb, I think it was the same as then he becomes the victim. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really sad story. It's a sad situation, and again, I don't think we'll ever know, but for that poor family's sake, I'm just going to say he didn't have anything to do with it. Not that they're watching or anything, but
no, yeah, you never know. But
you never know.
It makes me feel better. And I mean, and like I said, a bank robbery it's a very scary situation, and maybe
Mhm.
he was trying his best to stay calm, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
maybe one day, if you guys are lucky, I'll tell you about mine. No, just
Uh,
that's another show. That's a whole nother
yeah,
show.
yeah.
But anyway, guys, thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for
Yep.
talking this case over. Like we said, there's so much to this case. I mean, this could be like a 3-show type of.
Literally, there's so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
more.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we barely scratched the surface of it. But there's so many things that you can see online. If you have questions or want to know where to find that stuff, you can reach out to us. We're always around.
Or if
But
you just want to talk about it,
yeah,
we'll talk.
yeah,
We'll talk about it more to anybody who wants to.
Mhm.
Reach out. We'll chat away.
and we probably know more than the average bear now that we
Yeah.
have researched this case for a week and a half.
I mean,
I've
we
only went
still
through, like,
alone
2
have
pages of my notes, so
information. So
yeah.
Yeah, I'll screenshot all my notes to everybody.
Yeah.
It's the Cliff Note version. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
thanks for
you
watching.
can also find the Wikipedia version, which is a condensed version, but it does also have a lot of good information in there.
Right. And Nate, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yes.
Yes, it was fun.
Yes, I think we've ever had on the show in mind. Nobody's ever came with like 6 pages of notes. So
I was taking it very seriously. Let's do it.
well, good. I know who my fill-in's going to be if Tom ever bails on a random night or not. But
Hey now.
I said just one random night. Who knows?
Mhm.
But thanks everybody for watching. We will see you next week. And I'm pretty sure next week we have a case that's not solved. So that'll be an interesting topic. Anyway, everyone have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.